Sometimes games can be a little bit like a Jekyll and Hyde experience, where you've got two either gameplay mechanics or gameplay styles at opposite ends of their relative spectrum that are then smooshed together to create a interesting, if slightly whiplash-inducing experience. And this is how I feel about VORON Raven's story. You play as VORON, the titular raven, flying around various different environments, trying to send on souls to the next plane, as well as appeasing some angry gods. It's a fantastic narrative adventure with some real heartfelt moments in it, and some gorgeous, particularly in the open world mechanic areas, environments with some beautiful lighting. And sometimes this game is an absolute picture perfect beauty to behold as you fly around beautiful open world environments, trying to find objects to send to the next plane, but also completing different flight path challenges and just exploring the world around you. The key here is that that is one half of the game, where it's open, free and sparse, and you have full control over your own direction and can just explore to your heart's content. The other half of the game is much more specific. It's in enclosed chambers with rings for you to fly through in very specific flight path challenges that require accuracy and skills to harness the controls that are available at your disposal to be exacting in your turns and your pitches and your swoops and your dives. And because that is so skill dependent and very exacting, you have this real whiplash between freeing open world environments where your failures are actually quite comical, because whenever your poor raven hits something, it's got ragdoll physics that just make it kind of like roll around a little bit, and it's quite comedic and endearing. But there's no penalty for that because you just get up and keep going. In these trial-based environments, if you hit something, your run is over because you'll never be able to pick yourself back up again and get going before the time lapse period is over. And so you'll have to keep redoing and redoing and redoing. Crucially, with VORON Raven's story, I think the controls and physics, whilst they take a bit of getting used to, are actually quite well done. My issue with this is much more around the camera positioning, and I'll kind of pick these two off together to explain where I'm coming from. With VORON, you have the ability to waddle walk around on the ground, but when you press the first button to kind of jump up into the air, your wings don't do anything, and so you just kind of hover and then like fall to the ground slowly. But if you then press the jump to fly button again, you then start to flap and you'll get forward motion. And then it's up to you when you want to glide so that you can recover some stamina, because you have a very small stamina bar, especially early on in this game. And you kind of need to find pockets of energy to boost yourself forward through like wind currents to get your stamina back. But you can kind of slowly recover a little bit of it if you just pull your wings in and dive bomb round and through, and that can gather you some speed at some times. However, you will then be pitching and yawing yourself around through the left analog stick and right analog sticks, but the camera stays exactly where you're looking. And because you have no ability to kind of peer off into the distance to the left or right to see whether you've got your turning circle correct, that's what makes the challenge areas incredibly difficult to navigate as the difficulty curve goes up and up and up. The first kind of run through of trials I found quite fun and engaging because they were quite simplistic. But as they become more stunt orientated, and I'm using stunt in a very loose sense of the word, it's all about kind of dipping and diving in and out of rings, but the rings then start to move and then there's walls in the way, so you've got to time it right, or there might be things that kind of open and close that you need to kind of hover in and then dive through, but you need to make sure you've got the right stamina to do that. There's lots of things to think of, and the puzzles and the trials are creatively designed, and I think they are well designed from that perspective. But the lack of being able to have a freeform camera to really see where you need to get to in real time made it quite difficult to fulfill some of those challenges. And so you'll be rinsing and repeating back to the start again and again and again, which has some load-in times and then some built-in frustration. And then you start to kind of question, am I doing it right? And then the more jagged and annoyed you become, the more the poor raven starts to fly poorly, and so you kind of get yourself into a bit of a tailspin. That then led me to playing VORON Raven's story in shorter bursts through those trial sequences, because I'd get frustrated and then want to rage out for a little bit, which is quite unusual for me. But I think that's also testament to the fact that when you hit these open world environments, they are glorious and really well done, quite vast, still have some challenges in it, but because of the open plan nature of it all, and the fact that if you bugger up one trial, you can then just go off and enjoy the sunset or some weather changes, or start coring out to see whether or not there are some souls that dotted around you that you can then fly to and chat to, maybe do a fetch quest for, and then they will then ascend off to the next plane. And as you collect certain souls, that then opens up new portals for you to go off and complete other challenges. I did enjoy my time with VORON Raven's story, but that duality of different styles of gameplay needs to be called out, because I think you will have a preference for one style over another, but you need to be able to deal with both to see yourself through the roughly 4 to 5 hour adventure that VORON provides. I think it's gorgeous. I think the controls and the way how the Raven flies around is quite nifty, albeit quite different to most other flight games I've ever played. If you're thinking of like Air, for example, or even the Falconeer, like they handle very differently to this, and so that's what takes it a bit of getting used to here. But yeah, this deserves attention and it deserves praise. Again, just know going in that there are two very distinct halves to this game, and you'll flip between the two, and you need to be able and capable of doing both to see the end. VORON Raven's Story is out now, and I still give it a thumbs up, even if it made me angry. Take care.